Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dennae Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. On the podcast with us today is Heather Heuman. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, Heather. We are looking forward to talking with you today. And we'd like for you to get us started by just telling our audience a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and where your focus is right now.
Absolutely. So I am the founder of Sweet Tea Social Marketing and host of the Business Jesus and Sweet Tea podcast. And I have been in the digital marketing space for around 18 years. And currently, I pretty much focus on speaking across the U.S. about social media strategy for businesses to really be able to grow. And then I have a membership where I come alongside Christian business owners and help them actually be able to create the strategy and implement it and help them execute it in a group format inside of my membership.
I remember from our conversation a couple of months ago when I asked you to come on the podcast, I remember our conversation about your story, about how you got into this. And so I'd like for you to share a little bit of that as well, because I think it's an interesting story and kind of, help set the stage for the rest of the podcast.
Absolutely. So, I used to be a school teacher, and I ultimately ended up getting out of being a teacher kind of through some maybe not so fortunate circumstances in my personal life. And I ended up working at a grocery store, and I was a customer service manager, loved the work, but I found myself being 27 years old. All of the managers had kids and families. So I was working nights, weekends, Easter, and I really just was getting really tired of it. So I ended up taking an $18,000 pay cut to work as an office manager at a digital marketing company. And I ultimately, in around a 2-year time frame, went from having really no background in online marketing. And this, again, is 2000. So this is kind of like Google's just coming on the scene. And I was working from office manager to then turned project manager to then turned apprentice in the graphic design and web design department. So I pretty much got on-the-job training in a real digital marketing company working for huge brands, global brands. And that's really how I got into the space. And then fast forward, get married, have 3 kids, and I found myself in graduate school, got a master's in management and leadership. And at the time, I didn't even know all of these marketing words. But what I ultimately did was I created my own business, creating a website for this town in Kentucky to make it really easy for busy families to find fun things to do. And I had it as a business from day one and pretty much had local businesses advertise with me. And I used social media to grow that business completely from nothing to pretty much being the best digital resource in that community. And I used Facebook and Twitter to do so. And then I ended up moving in 2014 to a completely different part of the country. Exciting news, back to my hometown, but everything I had created was in that little, 30-mile radius. So I ended up in 2014, again, kind of everything just kind of built upon the next step, but I just used my connection skills, my ability to just show up on social. And I, again, created my Sweet Tea social marketing brand. And again, started from the ground up, started from nothing. And I used social media again to create that brand. And today it's a very sustainable, solid part of our family income. And it just continues to grow.
So Heather, I'm curious because at least a small portion of your story I could really relate to, because I also used to be a school teacher. And it's quite the transition between teaching school to now entrepreneur. So I'm curious, have you always had an entrepreneur leaning, if you will? Have you always known that that's kind of something that you'd like to do? Or was it, something that you just did because that fit your lifestyle at the time? And can you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. So, I would tell you that I would not feel that I would have that entrepreneurial leanings. But if I look back, even when I was working at that grocery store, like I created this thing called Heather's Haven. And I lived in Hilton Head at the time, where a lot of really rich people all come to vacation. So my idea was, I'm going to go grocery shop for these people so they don't have to, and deliver it to them. But it was really just like on a really small scale. And I wasn't really in the business mind of saying, okay, I need to charge this much to be able to execute it, actually becoming this profitable thing. So that was, I'd say, one thing that I actually did. But I would say it has a lot to do with my husband and saying, go for it, try it, why not? And I am much more of a safe player, if that makes any sense. And I would say his support and his encouragement of saying, why not? What's the worst thing that could happen? This isn't like our primary source of income, which is not what actually ended up being in the last 3 years. But back when I first started, it was really mainly, I'd say, his support of saying, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's not going to work out, but you'll never know if you don't try. And I would say it was that support that kind of pushed me over the edge to say, why not?
I want to dive into a couple of tough decisions that you've had along this journey, because I can tell just from some of the things you're already discussing that there's been probably some tough decisions that you've had to make along this way in this transition and even into where you are now. And so I want you to start us off with a tough decision that you've had to make as an entrepreneur that had a not so good outcome, and some of the lessons that you learned through that particular tough decision.
Yeah, so I would say, one of the toughest decisions I've ever had to make was actually firing a client. And I'm very much a people pleaser. At the same time, I really am very direct, and I don't really base what I do based on what everyone else thinks. But that said, when you're at a place where someone's paying you money, but it's literally sucking the life out of you, I really wrestled with, okay, well, they're paying me. I know I'm doing a good job, but I ultimately had to say, this is so draining. And the mental energy that this is taking from my bandwidth to be able to just personally thrive as well as serve my other clients well, it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. I hated the actual conversation, but it was a tough decision that I actually had to actually fire the client and just say, I wish you well, but this is not working. And I want to just give you all of your money back, and we're just going to move on because it's not a good fit. And so that was really tough for me to do.
Can you talk just a little bit about how long it took you to get to that realization? And maybe it was fast, maybe it took a few months, but what did you notice after you made that decision as far as, changes for you?
Yeah, so I would say it was very slow on that. And it was almost like a 12-month agreement. And I would say I didn't fire them until 6.5 months in. So it was 6 months of, this is painful, this hurts. And I was personally trying to grow myself, saying, okay, I think that there's got to be something I can do in this to make this not be so painful. But, it took me longer than I would care to admit to you that I just said, this isn't working. And once I did make the decision to say, here, this is not worth I didn't say it's not worth the money, but mentally I told myself that. Mm-hmm. But once I pretty much parted ways, it really made me look forward to checking my emails again. It made me look forward to serving my clients, because I love what I do. I don't even really consider, sitting down to write strategies and do all of what I do as work. But I found it just mentally freeing to not go, okay, there's going to be somebody blasting me in my email inbox, or just constantly making me feel that I'm not good enough, when whatever the case is. I personally felt like I had more air to breathe once I took that, I'd say, toxic client connection and relationship off of my workload.
So let's transition here and talk about a different tough decision. And this tough decision, I want you to share with us that as an entrepreneur had a really good and positive outcome, or even an outcome that was maybe more than you would expected in the very beginning, and some of the lessons through that one.
So it's interesting because it all has to do with this idea of memberships versus courses. And I originally in 2016 launched a membership to help business owners that needed help with social media. And it started off, I had a super low price point. I actually launched in the middle of a hurricane, not on purpose, but hurricanes kind of come when they want to come. And so the launch didn't go as I had hoped it would. But the people that were in there, they were paying month after month, but there were not many active people showing up and investing in themselves. So personally, yes, I was making money, but it's not the way I wanted to make money. I want to impact people's lives. I want them to say, if you do this, this, and this, it actually is going to work, and not just see that I have monthly payouts coming in from PayPal, regardless of whether they're consuming the content. So I made the decision, I would say, again, around 10 months in, where I just pretty much closed down that membership. I literally told everyone that was paying me, this is ending. Feel free to continue to have access to everything that was in here, but this isn't working how I wanted it to be. And then I waited probably another 12 months. And then this past June, I launched a new membership with a new name, with like a very clear directive on exactly who I'm helping. I raised my prices. I had a higher level group called my inner circle. So the price point of that was significantly more, but I said, you're paying more because you're getting more of my time, and I have this expertise. This is what I bring to the table. And I also know to be true that when you pay more, you pay attention more. And I have had a much more successful launch of this membership, and it felt good. But again, like I said, it had, those pieces in between where you're like, oh my goodness, I hate the idea of having to cancel this when people are paying me, but this isn't working well. So I have to stop this. And I paused and I waited and I regrouped and I launched again. And it's going much more in the way in which I had hoped it had gone the first time. But I've learned a lot of things along the way. So I'm quite pleased.
Heather, talk a little bit about the strategies that you like to use when you are facing a tough decision. How do you approach that decision, and how do you get to a place where you're ready to move forward in a specific way?
Yeah, so I would say what I typically do is I pretty much break down like the pros and the cons. I'm a even though we're all about social and digital, I'm a big pen and paper kind of person. So I get a Sharpie that feels good and fun. And I literally go old school and I write down a list of like, this is what's working. This isn't what's working. And sometimes even though there might be pros and things that are going well, it doesn't quite match either with our family lifestyle, or maybe financially, it doesn't meet the goals that we're trying to accomplish. And so I just ultimately do two main things. I would say I pray about the decision process, and then I seek input from either mentors or people that I believe that I really value and trust their opinion, and they're not the people that are going to just tell me what I want to hear. The people that I allow speak into my life to give me that tough love that are successful, that I'd say they're typically a little further along than I am in my own business, and really look at that and hear that. And, sometimes I'll have, online connections or friends in the business space, and they themselves don't know one another. But when I ask them both the same question and they both give me pretty much the exact same answer, it really kind of like validates the feedback in a way. Sometimes it's not even what I would want the feedback to be. And so I just try to take into consideration feedback from people that I believe, I don't want to say are smarter than me, but people whom I really respect and have experience. And then I just really pray about it before I go and take action. And then I transition. I either stop something, alter what needs to be changed, or, I completely change what I'm doing altogether.
And do you also, earlier in the episode, you were talking about how your husband was very supportive. Is he one of the people that you go to and ask some of those questions for and get some of that validation?
So my husband also has his own business, but he's really not into like the online space, if that makes sense. So I definitely talk to him and like, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about that? Here's my long-term game plan. Do you think this sounds like a good idea? So I get his opinion as my spouse, but I would say he's maybe less interested in maybe giving me the strategy on if that's a good idea or if it's not a good idea. And
From a
so
social media strategy standpoint, but from like a
right.
business standpoint, he might be able to help with some of that stuff that you would do. But I see
Absolutely.
sometimes with mentors, that a lot of times, I've mentored some other people and I've been mentored, and a lot of times, really deep down, we kind of know as business owners the answers to some of the questions that we have, but being able to call up somebody that you can trust and to give you, like you said, that an honest opinion can help you give you the validation of your decisions as well.
Absolutely. And I've actually recently, I've been in a place where I've been looking for not necessarily new mentors because I have mentors that are doing great things. They've accomplished a lot. But sometimes I look and say what they've accomplished is based on the success that they had 10 and 15 years ago. And I sometimes start comparing myself to someone who has an email list of 400,000 people. Well, when that person sends out an email, even if I were to send out the exact same email, well, they're going to most likely have different results, right? Because they've got this huge thing that they've been building upon for the last 15 years. So I currently say to myself, I'm looking for someone that's aligned with my same value system. They're respected by other people that I like, know, and trust, even if I don't know them personally super well. And then I say they have had success within the last, 18 months to 3 years. And I personally think that that's a really smart business strategy because sometimes it's easy to get insight from people that, like I said, they've got success, and I'm not taking away from their success, but it's not quite the same if they have this foundation that was established 15 years ago and they're just tweaking either their product offering or they're tweaking how many emails that they might send out. When you compare it to someone that in real time in the last 18 months has actually gone and created or gone from a 6-figure to a 7-figure business. And they really know those like nuances of where I might be as I try to scale my company.
All right, we have a good discussion going and lots more that we could add or talk about, but we need to take a quick break and we're going to hear from one of our show sponsors. When we come back, we're going to talk to Heather about some of her favorites as it relates to her life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. All right, we are back on the podcast here with Heather Heuman. Heather, I want you to start us off on this part of the episode to a series of quick questions and answers that we call the trifecta. And the first one is, what's your favorite technology that you use in business that helps make your life easier every day as an entrepreneur?
It is my smartphone by a landslide because it allows for me to be mobile and go, and I can do all types of my work right on my phone, no matter where I am.
What is a favorite quote that you've heard that has helped you as an entrepreneur?
I would say it was something I heard even back when I was in high school, and I unfortunately cannot quote who it's by, but it's kind of this concept of I am a part of all of whom I have met. And it's really this concept of really saying each and every person, each and every conference I go to, that there's just sometimes one little thing that you can get out of an experience that can make it completely worth it, even if there were maybe aspects to it that didn't go as you had hoped. So always to have that mindset of saying, every conversation, every conference, every event, if you're looking and if your eyes are open, you can ultimately become a better person just by pulling out those small little golden nuggets and just keep growing based on those.
And what's a favorite book that has helped you make better decisions as an entrepreneur?
There is a book called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. And I would say it's that book because over the last year and a half, it's just validating when you hear other people kind of embracing some of your same strategies as you pursue business, and this idea that people are people and they're not just dollar signs for us to just all add to our bottom line just really resonated with me from that book. And it's just fantastic, especially for anyone working on their content strategy.
Heather, what's the next thing for you right now on your vision and your dream board?
The next thing for me is to grow my membership to 500 plus members, not with this mindset of like, I want more people so I can make more money, but for the idea of having more people that I can actually serve and that I can help and that can see me as a trusted resource to help them be better. And I would say would be to speak more throughout the US and then to land my first international speaking event.
That is awesome. I love that. Heather, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to be with us today here on the podcast. How can the listeners reach out to you if they want to get some more information about you, your membership program, or just, maybe ask you some follow-up questions after they listen to this episode?
Sure. The best place to go would be my website, and then you can connect with me via either my contact page or my social platforms, which you can easily see. So just head to sweettSocialmarketing.com.
Well, thank you so much again, Heather, and look forward to following you as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur, and look forward to having you on a future podcast as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great connecting with you guys.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.